The Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna. Om Stapakayo cha dharmasya sarvadharma sarupine avatara burishthayo Ramakrishnaya te namah. Prakriting paramam bhayam varadam nararupa dharam janatapaharam sharanagata sevakato shakarim pranamami param jananing jagatam. In the company of devotees, about 8 o'clock in the morning, Sri Ramakrishna went as planned to Balaram Bose's house in Calcutta. It was the day of the Dol Jatra. Ram, Monmohan, Rakhal, Nitya Gopal, and other devotees with him. Ma too came as bidden by the master. The devotees and the master sang and danced in the state of divine fervor. Several of them were in an ecstatic mood. Nitya Gopal's chest glowed with the upsurge of emotion, and Rakhal lay on the floor in ecstasy, completely unconscious of the world. The master put his hand on Rakhal's chest and said, "Peace, be quiet." This was Rakhal's first experience of ecstasy. He lived with his father in Calcutta and now and then visited the master at Dakshineshwar. About this time, he had studied a short while in Vidyasagar school at Shampukur. When the music was over, the devotees sat down for their meal. Balaram stood there humbly, like a servant. Nobody would have taken him for the master of the house. Ma was still a stranger to the devotees, having met only Narendra at Dakshineshwar. A few days later, Ma visited the master at Dakshineshwar. It was between 4 and 5 o'clock in the afternoon. The master and he were sitting on the steps of the Shiva temples, looking at the temples of Radhakanta across the courtyard. The master went into an ecstatic mood. Since his nephew Hriday's dismissal from the temple, Sri Ramakrishna had been living without an attendant. On account of his frequent spiritual moods, he could hardly take care of himself. The lack of an attendant caused him great inconvenience. Sri Ramakrishna was talking to Kali, the divine mother of the universe. He said, "Mother, everyone says my watch alone is right. The Christians, the Brahmas, the Hindus, the Muslims all say my religion alone is true. But mother, the fact is that nobody's watch is right. Who can truly understand thee? But if a man prays to thee with a yearning heart, he can reach thee through thy grace by any path. Mother, show me some time how to Christians pray to thee in their churches. But mother, what will people say if I go in? Suppose they make a fuss. Suppose they don't allow me to enter the Kali temple again. Well then, show me the Christians worship from the door of the church." Another day, the master was seated on the small couch in his room with his usual beaming countenance. Ma arrived with Kali Krishna, who did not know where his friend Mo was taking him. He had only been told, if you want to see a grog shop, then come with me. You will see a huge jar of wine there. More related this to Sri Ramakrishna, who loved about it. The Master said, the bliss of worship and communion with God is the true wine, the wine of ecstatic love. The goal of human life is to love God. Bhakti is the one essential thing. To know God through jnana and reasoning is extremely difficult. Then the master sang, who is there that can understand what Mother Kali is? Even the six darshanas are powerless to reveal her. The Master said again, the one goal of life is to cultivate love for God, the love that the milkmaids, the milkmen, and the cowherd boys of Vrindavan felt for Krishna. When Krishna went away to Mathura, the cowherds roamed about weeping bitterly because of their separation from him. Saying this, the master sang with his eyes turned upward. Just now I saw a youthful coward with a young calf in his arms. There he stood, by one hand holding the branch of a young tree. Where are you, brother Kanai? He cried, but Kanai scarcely could he utter. Ka was as much as he could say. He cried, where are you, brother? And his eyes were filled with tears. When Mo heard this song of the Master's, laden with love, his eyes were moist with tears. Sri Ramakrishna was sitting in the drawing room of Keshav Chandra Sen's house in Calcutta. It was 5 o'clock in the afternoon when Keshav was told of his arrival. He came to the drawing room dressed to go out, for he was about to call on a sick friend. Now he cancelled his plan. The master said to him, you have so many things to attend to. Besides, you have to edit a newspaper. You have no time to come to the Kineshwar. So I have come to see you. When I heard of your illness, I vowed green coconut and sugar to the Divine Mother for your recovery. I said to her, Mother, if something happens to Keshav, with whom shall I talk in Calcutta? Sri Ramakrishna spoke to Pratap and the other Brahma devotees. Ma was seated nearby. Pointing to him, the master said to Keshav, Will you please ask him? Will you please ask him why he doesn't come to the Kineshwar anymore? He repeatedly tells me he is not attached to his wife and children. Ma had been paying visits to the master for about a month. His absence for a time from the Kineshwar called forth this remark. Sri Ramakrishna had asked Ma to write to him if his coming were delayed. Pandit Shamadhai was present. The Brahma devotees introduced him to Sri Ramakrishna as a scholar well versed in the Vedas and the other scriptures. The master said, Yes, I can see inside him through his eyes, as one can see the objects in a room through the glass door. Trailokya sang. Suddenly the master stood up and went into Samadhi, repeating the mother's name, coming down a little to the plane of sense consciousness. He danced and sang. I drink no ordinary wine, but wine of everlasting bliss. As I repeat my mother Kali's name, It so intoxicates my mind that people take me to be drunk. First, my guru gives molasses for the making of the wine. My longing is the ferment to transform it. Knowledge, the maker of the wine, prepares it for me then. And when it is done, my mind imbibes it from the bottle of the mantra, taking the mother's name to make it pure. Drink of this wine, says Ram Prasad, and the four fruits of the life are yours. The master looked at Keshav's tenderly, as if Keshav's were his very own. He seemed to fear that Keshav might belong to someone else, that is to say, that he might become a worldly person. Looking at him, the master sang again. We are afraid to speak, and yet we are afraid to keep still. Our minds, O Radha, have believed that we are about to lose you. We tell you the secret that we know, the secret whereby we ourselves and others with our help have passed through many of a time of peril. Now it all depends on you. Quoting the last part of the songs, quoting the last part of the song, he said to Keshav, that is to say, renounce everything and call on God. He alone is real, all else is illusory. Without the realization of God, everything is futile. This is the great secret. The master sat down again and began to converse with the devotees. For a while, he listened to a piano recital, enjoying it like a child. Then he was taken to the inner apartments where he was served with refreshments and the ladies saluted him. As the master was leaving Keshav's house, the Brahma devotees accompanied him respectfully to his carriage. Thank you so much. জয় রাধারমন, জয় ঠাকুর।